Those of you staying here, we're headed to Daniel chapter 1, chapter 2. They should be right next to each other. If you have the notes, that's tremendous to help out. Let's do this while people are getting situated. Okay? Let's just get our minds working. Name a state where they say y'all. Bama, Texas. Okay, here's what the survey said. The survey said Kentucky, Tennessee, Arkansas, Louisiana, Georgia, Alabama, and Texas was number one. No northern states. I don't understand that. Okay, name something kids are taught in school about Abe Lincoln. Nothing. Revisionist history. Okay. Emancipation, freeing slaves. Gettysburg Address, assassination. Honest Abe. Okay, here's what they said. He had a beard, he was an abolitionist, tall, honest, and he was the 16th president. I'm not sure if anybody realizes the numbers. Name a city where there's very aggressive drivers. Lebanon. Lebanon. And what's your address? What's your address? I think your address is Lebanon, isn't it? Yeah, okay. What's that? Philadelphia? Boston, yeah. Okay, you got several. Here we go. Survey said Myerstown, D.C., Boston, Chicago, Los Angeles, New York City was given number one. If a wedding took place in a deli and they didn't have rice, what would they throw? Potato salad? Chips? Okay. Have you ever seen this when you're working in the restaurant? No? Okay. Not in deli. Salt, pasta, lettuce, seeds, rye poppy seeds, cheese, meat and ham, and number one was bagels. Okay, yeah. Name a way God communicated to people in the Old Testament. Prophets, dreams, angels, personal conversations. Do you think we got them all? What's that? There was an animal. Yeah, I didn't think about that. Yeah. So through written down revelation, which was the book of Deuteronomy, the first 5 books, direct conversations, I think you've covered them all. We're talking about one of the major dreams in the Old Testament. So we're in Daniel chapter 2, but in order to get to where we need to understand the setting for Daniel 2, let's remind ourselves of the background. The book of Daniel, we said, is an exciting book. It's attacked, it's criticized, but it is rich. It opens up with the Jews as a nation that they've been disciplined by the Lord. Why? Why is God's chastening hand upon his chosen people? Okay, they were given to idol worship, okay? Any other reasons? Or is that the only reason? Okay, not honoring the years of rest. There's 2 reasons given in the text, okay? They had allowed, and the Jews since Solomon's day, they had always allowed some semblance of idolatry. It was even there, since they came out of Egypt. I should be more factual about that. But David kind of purged it, and Solomon, he gets influenced by who? Who brought in a lot of the idols with Solomon? His many wives, when he did treaties. And so they allowed it, and so the southern kingdom didn't have as much as the northern kingdom, but they got into a lot of idolatry worship. And so as a result, God had said at the very beginning, I am the Lord your God, there shall be only, basically what? One God, thou shalt not make any graven images. And so they violated it. But there's another reason given in the text that really applies to the book of Daniel. What happens is, remember in the Old Testament that they had, Leviticus 26 talks about this, they had Sabbath rest. Did they have Sabbath every week? Okay, which day was Sabbath? Saturday, okay. Did they have Sabbath beyond Sabbath week? Did they have other designated Sabbaths? Okay, they had a Sabbath year. What was that? Anybody remember? Every 7 years, you had to let the land rest. Okay, no farming that year. And then they had, on top of that, another, what they called their Jubilee year, where every 50th year, it was even a double whammy. How do you run a business? How do you provide for your family if you're not farming for a year? God said he would provide. Just like he did with the manna. Remember in the wilderness? He would provide enough that would carry them through on the day that they had the Sabbath day. And so God had told them, you're going to have a whole year that you're not going to be doing your normal, typical farming. What would that require of the people? Great faith. What's that? I'm sorry, they would have to what? Yeah, they would have to plan. Exactly. Okay. Okay. Which is the same thing like Joseph within Egypt. There was the years of plenty to prepare for the following years. The Jews had, and God had given them, the Bible that they had, so he told them, and he gave them a brain to make application for it, just like he does with us. But what did the Jews do? Did they observe the Sabbath days when it came to the weekly? You got a 50-50 chance, it's yes or no. Okay, for the most part they did. And even by the time of Jesus' day, they were really, they were really hyper Sabbath by that point. But that's because they'd been punished for it. So we're backing up into the period where the kings are just winding down, Chronicles is winding down, and God had warned them. I'm taking all the way back to Leviticus. God had warned them that if you will not listen to me but walk contrary, then I will walk contrary to you in fury. I myself will discipline you. I myself will devastate the land. So your enemies who settle in it shall be appalled at how bad it gets. I will scatter you among the nations. The sword will be after you. Your land shall be desolate. Your city shall be waste. Then the land shall enjoy Sabbaths as long as it is desolate, while you are in your enemy's land. Then the land shall have rest and enjoy its Sabbaths. As long as it lies desolate, it shall have rest, and the rest that you have not basically done while you were dwelling in the land. Then he ends up the chapter with this warning, but the land shall be abandoned by them and enjoy its Sabbath while it lies desolate, and you shall make amends for your iniquities, etc., etc. I will destroy, but then I will not forsake you totally. So God had warned them. He had predicted this is going to happen in the book of Leviticus when he's giving all the different laws. Then we fast forward and we come into the book of Jeremiah, who is preaching at the time that the Babylonians are threatening the Israel in the early 600s. And so he is preaching and he's saying there's going to come a country, and I've given you some quotes here, there's going to come a country, and this country God is going to use to spank you for your idolatry and for your not following the Sabbaths. The country is Babylon, and how long is the punishment? Okay, you can see right here, it's for 70 years. So he quotes, there's a couple different passages that quote this, that make it clear. In fact, Chronicles says this is why the Babylonians came and take out the Jews out of the land of Israel, and the Sabbath, they're going to get Sabbath rest for 70 years. What that means is, for some 490 years now, 500 years, they have not been following any of the Sabbath laws about letting the land rest. And so God is recouping this by getting them out of the land and letting the land be dormant. And at the end of the 70 years, then the people like Ezra and Nehemiah are going to come back and resettle. But they never have idolatry after that, and they follow the Sabbath rules more faithfully after the 70 years of spanking. If we can put it that way, God's chastisement. And so what's happening in the book of Daniel is this is God's discipline on them for not following the Sabbaths, for not trusting the Lord and doing it as he said. And so what happens is the land is going through great trial and tribulation as a nation, but so are Daniel and his young men. I was reading the account of one preacher that said that when he was 14 years old, he's going through this small town where they lived, and he just happened to see his dad walking out of a restaurant with another woman other than his mom. And so he went home and told his mom. They that evening confront dad, and he says, my whole life changed. At 14, what I thought was a solid home, everything was great. All of a sudden, my world was turned totally upside down because of what my dad, in his sin that he was involved in. Well, that's what happened to Daniel. Daniel was an innocent victim. His relatives, his kinsmen, had done wrong, but his life has turned topsy-turvy. Him and the other boys were taken, and they were taken as hostages, and part of the plan was to make them into Chaldean or Babylonian wise men. They were assigned foods that they didn't want to eat because what do we know about the food? Chapter 1, we talked about this. Define the food. Okay, sacrifice to idols, unclean. It was food that would defile them. It was forbidden by their law, okay, to just summarize it. So what happens, the boys are remaining faithful, though they're taken out of the land, the law is still in their hearts. And so these young boys, 14, 15, 16 years old, they determine we're going to follow the Lord, we're going to eat porridge, we're going to eat vegetables for this period of time that we're being in training, and we're going to remain faithful to our Jewish dietary laws. They offer to eat less delectable foods to keep the law, and God bless them, and they end up being what compared to the other kids? Okay, thank you. They end up better looking and healthier at the end of their training, which is how long? Do you remember how long they're supposed to be in school, be indoctrinated? 3 years. Okay, that's important in the next few moments. And so what happens, chapter 2 picks up. And chapter 2 picks up right at this time period that these guys have just been in school. And then at the end of chapter 1, they go through their graduation exam with King Nebuchadnezzar. And what is the conclusion? Nebuchadnezzar finds Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, what in comparison to the other kids? 10 times better. Okay, so keep that in mind, that that was at the end of the 3 years, there is a test, there's an exam. Now we pick up, and we're in chapter 2, something else that happens. And so even though they're done with school and the rigors of school, and man, they'd finally got through it all, the trials don't go away. It seems like it gets worse for these kids, for these young men, because they face this trial now that is going to challenge their lives. Start with chapter 2, and I want to just get it going, and then we're going to go right off topic real quick. Chapter 2, verse 1. The first phrase, what do you have? In the second year of who? Nebuchadnezzar. Okay, so we start off, he's giving us background, he's giving us detail, and immediately, if you go online, immediately you're going to find people saying, this is it. This is proof that Daniel is not from God. It's the book that is filled with errors. Because, look at Daniel chapter 2, verse 1, the first phrase. In the second year of Nebuchadnezzar, remember the whole story. Nebuchadnezzar has a dream. And in this dream, we'll talk about it in this week and next week. And he needs somebody to interpret. Take to the end of the story, who interprets the dream? Daniel does. What happens as reward for Daniel? At the end of the chapter, of chapter 2. The king is so smitten by Daniel's insights. What does the king do with Daniel? He promotes him so he is basically above all of the Chaldeans. Okay, do you see the problem that some people pose? The training in chapter 1 lasted how long? 3 years. And then it says, then the king interviews him. But chapter 2, verse 1 says, in the second year. So we've got a problem, okay? And so there's a contradiction within chapter 1 and chapter 2. That proves this isn't inspired, okay? And so you go, okay, that's could in the way we do numbering, the way we understand without going back into history, that makes sense that they found an error. But if you and I say, well, wait a minute, let's pause. Okay, is there another possible explanation of this? And you know, obviously, that there is. Okay, so here's the possible explanation. Okay, the explanation can go this way. And again, if you go online, you're going to find all the negative. You won't find a whole lot of the positive explanation. So what you have is this. We've already mentioned that it seems like a contradiction, because it seems like, according to chapter 2, Daniel is elevated before graduation, and it seems like the king didn't know much about him, initially, and why would he have to examine all those things? Here's your possibilities that they read. Nebuchadnezzar assumed the authority of the throne when his dad died. His dad died while he was in battle near Jerusalem with Egypt and Jerusalem. His dad died. He became immediately the king, okay? But that doesn't mean his official period of rule started. Let me give you the illustration. When do we elect a president? What month? Okay, when does he become president? Okay, so when does his 4-year cycle start? January. There's a period of time. Same things that happen in modern days. the king can become king, but actually his real reign really starts when he's coronated. Okay, history tells us there's a difference between the time that Nebuchadnezzar assumed the throne and the time he was coronated. Okay, we have that historical information, and so in 605 he becomes the king because his dad dies, but he doesn't become coronated until the earlier part of 604. And so there's several months, up to a year, that's in between that time. So what we could have in Daniel 3 is that we're in school for a period of around 3 years based on Jewish, because it's written in Hebrew, based on Jewish times of dating. And chapter 2 is in Aramaic, written towards the Gentiles. And what dating are they using in chapter 2? The Babylonian dating. Okay, and so if you compare your dates in Jewish way that they would do it, if and I'm just going to throw out possibilities. If Daniel and his friends go into school in July, okay, and January, the new year starts in January, okay, from July to January, what would they count that? 1 year. If it's part of a whole, it's considered one. They would do this with dating a lot. So your first year could be just a matter of a few months. Then you have your second year, and if they only did from January to March, they had 3 months of training in that next cycle. That would be your third year. And so the Jews are counting part of a year on both ends and the full year. And so when you compare it all, where the Nebuchadnezzar is going his reign, there were several months and they could overlap easily. It's not that difficult. It takes a little bit of sitting down and just charting it out. But it's not that difficult. There's no need to say that this is false. So we get rid of that and we say, okay, let's keep the story going. So Nebuchadnezzar has a dream just once. Okay? What do you have in your Bible? In the second year of the reign, he what? Does it say twice dreams? Does it say dreams in your translation? What does it say? Okay. The idea is he dreamed this multiple times. If you start dreaming something multiple times, what does that kind of get in your mind? Is somebody's trying to tell you something? Okay. And if it's something that is bad and you keep on having that dream, what do you think? Does it gets your attention? Does it become nightmarish? Did it become unsettling? Okay, so he's dreaming this dream multiple times, and it says his spirit is troubled. Why would his spirit be troubled? He keeps on dreaming the same thing over and over and over that it's impacting. And remember back in that period of time, we were just talking about dreams with one of our folk here this morning, about what our dreams mean, right? You know, Troy, you and your wife were saying that, you know, the dreams that we have weird dreams. Back in the ancient world, what they dreamt they thought was a message. Man, nowadays I'm so glad we don't think that today. Whew. Any of you have weird dreams? Yes? Okay. And then you think, oh, I wonder what this is, a message from one of the divine gods through my dream. That was their thinking. Dreams meant something, not like you had pizza or spaghetti late at night or you saw something on TV. If you dreamt it, it was a message. And so you can understand why he would do this. And as well, this dream comes from God. God can not only give a dream, but can he make you a little bit agitated? Okay, and stir him up. And so it says in verse 2, his sleep break from him. Literally, that's what it says in the Hebrew. It says his sleep break from him. You and I understand that, what that means. Okay, what does that mean about him in his rest? He's not getting rest. Okay, when you don't get rest, what happens to you? Well, maybe we should have somebody else in your house talk. Okay, so his sleep is gone, and so he calls for his wise men, and the wise men come in because he wants to know what this message is from the dream. Why does he call the wise men? What's that? They're supposed to be wise. Okay. They're scholars, they're students, but they're supposed to also have a spiritual connection. Okay, and so these guys that they're calling, he's calling, these are his personal advisors. These are the ones who are supposed to be able to tell him what the divine is telling him, what the deities are saying. They're supposed to read the omens and the signs. Were these guys smart? Yes, no? Or were they just a bunch of, hucksters and foolish phonies? Okay. There's probably a mixture of both, you're right. But they were smart people. I mean, seriously, this is around the time period that we have from this region of the world that they say, okay, working on the date of a year based on the solar system. They said, this is how long the year is. And this is from their findings, 365 days, 6 hours. How close is that to the reality? Close? No? Okay, it's really close. They're only off by just under 27 minutes. That's pretty good for ancient world thinking, yes? With limited telescopes and all those different things. And so these guys aren't fools, okay? And they know what they're supposed to be doing. But the king brings them in, and he wants them to do something. Interpret the dream. Okay, so he wants them to interpret the dream and tell them the message, but how do they respond? The conversation as you read it through. Their first response is, okay, we will tell you the interpretation, but you have to tell us what the dream was. That makes sense to you and me. What's the king do? The king said, okay, verse 5, he answered and said, what's your Bible read? The thing is gone from me. What? Anybody have another rendering? Is that what we basically have? Okay. The thing is gone from me, and if you will not make known unto me the interpretation of the dream, you shall be cut in pieces in your families. Your households will we make into a latrine. I'm going to make them into an outhouse. Okay? And so the king blanked to share the dream with them. He refuses. Why? There's two possibilities here. Okay, that's one of the possibilities. He wants them to see if they really know what they're talking about. Tell me the dream and the interpretation. He can't remember is the other possibility, okay? That it's gone from him, he doesn't remember. Do you remember your dreams after you wake up? Sometimes? Okay. Do they become a fog as the day goes on? Okay. And even if you're having it multiple times, things get foggy, yay? Okay, so, or there's the possibility, because he even makes comment to them, where does he say you're buying time? Verse 8. I know of a certainty that you would gain or buy some time because you see the thing is gone from me. And so he's challenging them, and he says, if you don't tell me the dream, you're not going to go out for supper tonight. Okay. I mean, seriously, you're one of the wise men sitting before this king, and what does he tell you? If you don't tell me the dream and the interpretation, okay, I'm going to cut you in pieces. It's not I'm going to banish you, I'm going to kill you and your families. Okay, why is this king so harsh so quickly? Lack of sleep? Do you get, no, okay, I'm not going to ask. Okay. Do people react when they're tired? Okay. And what's another possibility?
He's frustrated because
He
he doesn't understand.
doesn't have his what?
He's frustrated because he doesn't
He
understand.
doesn't understand. Okay. Fear? What do you mean by fear? Okay, all good possibilities. We don't know why. It's just fear from the dream. He's testing these guys. He's just miserable, okay, which none of us would understand, okay, when we're lacking sleep. But he really gets, but flip the coin over. He also said this, if you don't tell me the dream, I'm going to wipe you and your families out. And then he goes on and makes, but if, in verse 6, you tell me the dream, you shall receive of me gifts and rewards and great honor. So he's promising to bless them, and their response is, no man on earth can do this. Is that true? Okay. Is there some truth to this? That people cannot do this. Okay. So there's some truth to that. But, okay, let me put this out. I think for being really wise men, they say some really stupid things here. Okay. If you follow what I mean, follow along. Here's what happens. I have dreamed a dream, he says, and they said to the king in their language, King, live forever. Tell your servants the dream. The thing is gone from me. If you'll not make known, I'm going to wipe you out, and your home's going to become an outhouse. If you show me the dream, I'm going to bless you. Therefore, show me the dream and the interpretation. They answered and said, let the king tell the servants the dream, and we will show you the interpretation. King says, I know that you're just buying time because you see the thing is gone from me, but if you will not make known unto me the dream, there is one decree for you. For you have prepared lying and corrupt words to speak before me till the time be changed. Therefore, tell me the dream, and I shall know that you can show me the interpretation. The wise men answered and said, there is not a man upon the earth that can show the king's matter. Therefore, there is no king, lord, nor ruler that has asked such a thing at any magician, astrologer, or Chaldean. It's a rare thing that you're requiring, and there is none other that can show it to you, the king, except the gods who dwell not in flesh. For this cause, the king becomes very, very angry. For wise guys talking to the king who has their lives dangling, they make these comments and they say, no man can do this, which has just got them fired from their job. Right? Okay? In other words, we can't do our jobs. Okay? Which is kind of stupid to say, admit. No king or lord has ever asked such a thing. It's almost like a rebuke. The man is mad at you. Do you rebuke your boss at this moment? No. No. Okay. So, and he says, nobody can show it to you except the gods. That's really dumb. Who are they claiming to be spokesmen for? The gods. What have they just said? We can't do it. Again, they double whammied themselves. They got themselves fired, and then they got themselves executed all in one. And so they're rebuking him. And the king's reaction is, oh, I got it. I'm sorry, I asked too much of you. No, what's the king's reaction? He's angry and furious and commands to destroy all the wise men. Does he practice self-control? Okay. Does he go off the deep end? Kind of, because now he wants to get rid of all of the wise men throughout all of Babylon. And so he's definitely throwing out the baby with bathwater at this moment. He's angry and furious. So let's remind ourselves, okay? Let's remind ourselves of this setting. Why is this king so rash in this order? Could be tiredness. What else does it reveal about him? What's that? He knows they're fakes. Okay. Okay, that could be there. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yes, sir, Ken. Yeah, wouldn't that make you uncomfortable? My best advisors have just admitted, yeah, they're really stupid. Okay, not that they just can't interpret it, but my wise men just made some really stupid comments to me, right? What else might be in this king's makeup? Remember, he's a king. Do all kings show humility and graciousness? No. No. We could just go down the list. Maybe sleep deprived means he's losing his mind. Okay. Maybe he didn't really like these guys. This was the last straw. And he kind of alludes to that. He's already suspicious of their chicanery and they're buying time. Maybe he has seen how they've manipulated his dad on the throne. Remember, he grew up in the palace. And maybe he saw how these guys would try to manipulate people. And he's like, they're not going to do this to me. Maybe he's given to overreacting. Have you ever run into somebody who overreacts? Yes, no? Are there such people that exist? Besides 3-year-olds, are there adults that do this? Okay. Maybe he has anger issues. Maybe he's very arrogant and feels that these guys are disposable. I'll get rid of them and get some new ones. Okay. Maybe he's just simply, he's cruel. He's an Ivan terrible. You know, he's just a despot. He's a tyrant. Maybe he's an early Antichrist type attitude, that he doesn't care about people. I don't know, but I know where he's at. I know he's absolutely threatening to kill even innocent people who weren't in the court. How do we know that? Because the next verses. We know that Daniel and his men, his 3 men, at this setting, and any of the others who may have graduated just recently, it says the decree went forth, verse 13, and the wise men should be slain. And what does it say the executioners do? They are searching for Daniel and his friends included. Now, again, it's not just Daniel and his friends that are target, it's all of them, but the author wants you to understand, Daniel wants you to understand, we were on the hit list. And not only were we on the hit list, I'm going to tell you a little bit more. Daniel answered with counsel and wisdom to Arioch, the captain of the guard, which had gone forth to slay the wise men. Arioch, the guard, finds Daniel, and they have a conversation. And Arioch is supposed to do what to Daniel? Kill him. Okay, and so it gets really interesting here that what's happening now is in this story that these kids who have survived the Battle of Jerusalem, okay, a couple, 3 years ago, 2 years ago, they survived eating just plain vegetable stuff for the period of time they were in school. They survived the stress. Now all of a sudden they're facing imminent death. Folk, this isn't just a note. This isn't just a, you better or else. The executioner is at their door. It is happening. It is real for them. They are hunted down and they're found. And so I think what sometimes we read and say, oh, there was a possibility, that if they got found out, the Hebrew babies might be slain. But somebody was able to hide them. No, this was, they're caught. The executioner is at the door. They're about to die. And so we read some of this already. It says Daniel replied with prudence and discretion. And we go on and he asks Arioch, which I find this an interesting conversation. Instead of swinging the sword and executing, because remember how was the death to be carried out? Cut in pieces. It was a violent death. Okay, so instead of swinging the sword right away, Daniel asks and says, what's going on? And Arioch takes the time to explain it. What does that say to you? Oh, right, it could be that Daniel's influence went beyond the caregiver, or the caretaker over him. It affected others in the court that liked Daniel. That's a real good possibility here. And then Arioch makes the matter known to Daniel, which, doesn't it strike you interesting that the person who comes to Daniel's door is Arioch, a guy who isn't like the king? He is of the mindset, I'll explain before I kill you. But he's under orders to do what? Kill him. He's not rash. He's reasonable. How come he shows up at the door? God. God is moving in this one. That God providentially brings this guy to Daniel's door. And what do you know about this guy? You got to put the pieces together. Okay, Daniel answered and says to Arioch, the captain of the king's guard, which was gone forth with this reason to slay the wise men. He answers and he says, he said to the king, why is the decree so hasty? Arioch made the thing known to Daniel. Verse 16, what does Daniel do? Okay, Daniel went in. There's something missing between those two verses. Arioch let him go. Right? Arioch gave him permission to go to the king, or Remember, there's a death sentence. This is more interesting. Or there's something else here. Arioch takes him and arranges, and Arioch's the only one who could do this. He's in charge. Isn't it interesting how God brings this guy to Daniel's door? This guy who is able to spare the life of Daniel, and probably the only one who could make this appointment, because all the other guards, if Daniel comes walking into the king's presence unaccompanied, what are they supposed to do to Daniel? Yeah. So there's little tidbits here that had to be happening that God is moving. And so you just put it all together, and let me jump to where we're going here. There's several things that stand out. Number one is this, that many crises we face are actually a result of God at work. Okay? This is no incident or accident in history. Who gave the dream? God gave the dream. Who took his sleep from him? So God is setting up the scenario, okay? That God is moving in all of this, because Daniel even says later on that God has made known to you. God has given this dream to give you the future. And so we know that this trial that comes to Daniel, where he is facing imminent death at his door. Initially, when he opens this door, they burst in. He could be slain right away if it wasn't for it happening to be Arioch. He could have been killed right away. God was moving in all of this. Let's keep on going here. So what's God trying to do through all this? It's obvious. It's obvious by the way Daniel responds. If you jump down to when Daniel gets the dream, watch what Daniel says when he goes back to the king later on. In fact, supporting what we're talking about. Go to verse 23. Daniel went in unto Arioch, whom the king had ordered to destroy. He went in and said, destroy not the wise men. Bring me to the king. I will show the king the interpretation. He brings Daniel in haste. And he says, I found a guy, the captain of the Judah, that will make known unto the king the interpretation. The king answered and said, Daniel, whose name is, are you able to make known the dream? Daniel answers, the secret which the king has demanded cannot the wise men, the astrologers, the magicians, the soothsayers show unto the king. But there is a God in heaven that reveals secrets, that makes known to the king Nebuchadnezzar what shall be in the latter days. Your dream, your visions upon your head, that's it. This is God's future telling. As for you, O king, your thoughts came into your mind upon your bed, what should come to pass hereafter, and he has revealed secrets made known unto you what shall come to pass. But as for me, this secret's not revealed in me, for any wisdom that I have more than any other living man, but for their sakes that shall make known the interpretation of the king, that you may know the thoughts of my heart. And then he goes on. Daniel is giving credit to who for this dream? God. Who's he talking to? King Nebuchadnezzar, who considers himself a god. By the way, what does Nebuchadnezzar and his court think of Daniel's God? We just beat him. We beat him in battle. Not just once, but we've done it now twice at this time. If we understand they're going, or they've just done the second invasion. And so he's this God in the eyes. Can you imagine if Daniel comes in and if all the other wise men are there and they're hearing Daniel say, King, let me tell you what the dream is. By the way, it's all from Jehovah God. And all these other guys go, oh yeah, him? He's such a weakling, he couldn't even protect his people. This is an amazing statement this kid makes in front of this guy. And so why is it happening? So this kid can make this amazing statement about God before this guy. God is providing opportunity for him to be, his name to be known, even in this horrible situation. And so through this, God's word is going to be given. Revelation is going to be given. Future revelation is going to be given. Does end times information about judgment and heaven on earth, does that impact people to get saved? Yes? Okay, so he's giving them revelation. And as well, in the end of the story, God's servants are going to be elevated. For what good reason does Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego get elevated? Is it of any benefit? How does it benefit their people? Okay, their people are in exile. Did God put Mordecai in a good spot at the right time so he could influence the king against Haman? Did God put Esther in the palace at the right time for such a time as these? Did God raise up Joseph when his brothers meant evil, but God meant it for good to impact peoples in the world? So we can keep on going with this. God is using this at a moment to just put Daniel in a spot that he can make a huge impact and help bring about God's plan for the nation of Israel in a just roundabout, behind the scenes way. It is amazing how God can do this. So in the crises, we understand that God uses crises to make himself known, to keep his plan going. By the way, does God ever put crises in your life? Yes, no? What is he doing in the crises? All things work together for good to them who are called according to his purpose. And we are called to be conformed to who? The image of Jesus Christ. So does God have a purpose in making you better by putting trials in your life? Yeah. Does God bring trials in your life sometimes so you can be a witness? Yes. So same thing. It's happening, but in different places and different times, generations. So we know that crises can come, but here's the key for you and me. In all our crises, we should react in a godly fashion. Now, this is where the story becomes personal to you and me. By looking at Daniel's reaction and how he and what he did, how might we learn from it to say, how do we react when loss of a job? How do we react when loss of health? How do we react when loss of a house? How do we react when crises hits the kids or grandkids? How do we react? Okay, let's look and see. And again, Daniel's trial is different than any of yours. His is more severe than anything we face right now. He's got the executioner at the door. And the executioner, if Daniel happened to be married at this time, which we don't know about any of the guys, not only is Daniel's life threatened, but his family's as well. Okay, we don't know about Daniel, if he ever did marry. We don't have any clue. But if he did, and if he had a family, it's not just him, it's his family. This is really serious. This is life and death. This is you over in Tajikistan today meeting, and the KGB come in, they arrest you, and they're going to kill you at noon. This is how serious this is. None of us have the same trial to that extent, but we should have the same similar responses. Watch how this guy responds. Okay, death at the door. He has poise, self-control. How do I know that? Because the passage says, okay? And by the way, just to give you the setting, here's some of the information. The word captain of the guard in the original language means the captain of the slayers. Okay? So it's the ones who actually carry out the execution. Many think it's the bodyguard, the ones who would kill anybody who got too close to the king or would carry out his orders to slay anybody he wants slayed. They would be the captain of the people who would actually throw people into the fiery furnace, the ones who would carry it out. And so he's the guy who is the executioner doing it. Then the second time he's called a captain, it's a different word in the original language. It means chief or the one in control, the mighty one. So he is a very important official in the king's court. He is in charge of the executioners, but he's also called a mighty one within the court. This guy has influence. This guy has authority. Why does he come after Daniel? Why does he personally come to Daniel's chambers? Okay, it's God. It's God. But from his perspective, what might he have thought he was doing? Well, that's how it ends up. He's the one that can get Daniel to the king, because he's not only the captain of the executioners, he's a really mighty official. Okay, what might Arioch's mind be thinking?
Get a solution or protect Daniel?
To protect Daniel, could Arioch have been favorable to Daniel? Yeah. And he said, "I'm not going to send somebody else. I'm going to do it myself." Yes, no. Yeah. Okay, again, we don't know. Could he be the one that would go? Because maybe he's a zealous, obedient servant. I don't want to trust any of this to my guards. I'm going to be there and make sure it's done. If that's the case, not only is Daniel in danger, but he's in triple danger because it's this guy who's coming to carry this thing out. Anyway, if that's the case, God is providentially working to bring this guy, because if Daniel needed an advocate, and we read later on in the chapter that he does, Arioch's the right guy to be the advocate. And I think it is amazing that this guy even allows Daniel to have a conversation with him. That he hesitates pulling the trigger and says, okay, let's discuss it. I'm going to tell you why this is going on. So here's a kid that has poise, and he's learning that his life is going to end, but there's something missing that would really disturb most of us. Why is my life ending? Daniel doesn't understand why. He understands they're there to kill him, but makes it worse because I don't know, why are you here? Why is the king so rash in all this? And so what happens, he responds, and we read in the text, he answered with prudence and discretion. The discretion means he's speaking appropriately to this guy. Where if you and I were all of a sudden somebody's going to kill us, might we respond by saying, you jerk, what are you doing? Okay, attack back, try to defend, try to just lose control. Not Daniel. Very poised in all this. He answers in such a way that Arioch doesn't kill him on sight. He answers in such a way that Arioch's willing to explain. He answers in such a way that Arioch allows him to see the king, or at least gives him the opportunity that he could go and somehow work it out. I think he helps him out. But Arioch is reacting to Daniel in a good way because, how does it say in Proverbs? What turns away wrath? A soft answer turns away wrath. It's called self-control. And so this guy, he prays, and so I just did this for fun. I just was saying, okay, how would I have acted as a teenager? And how did Daniel react? Okay? Now, most of you were very mature teenagers. I wasn't, okay? And so I would be one who anger and overreaction and just like, if you hit me, I had 4 brothers. This is just the way we were. If you hit me, I'm hitting you back harder. Okay, and it was just, so it's that type of silly stuff. So what did he not do? What did he do or say? Just to make a comparison chart. Okay, what didn't this teenager who's facing death, so he's 17, 18, 19 at this point, young adult, let's put it that way. There's no panic in his voice. There's no pouting in his voice. There's no attack on the other wise men. Why are you killing me? They're the idiots. Okay? There's no accusations against the king being, he's a tyrant. He's a maniac. There's nothing like that stated at all. There's no excuses given or promises. In fact, when my kids were little and we're headed towards a room where we would do discipline, my kids would promise the moon. Yeah, I promise I'll never, ever, ever disobey you again. Yeah, you little sinner, I believe that. Yeah, okay. So there's no hiding. There's no fleeing. There's what shows up in the controlled speech, respectful speech, calm and courageous words. Daniel's saying, give me some time when he goes to the king. And he has the faith that he'll get the interpretation. That right-hand column is amazing for a young adult facing death at the door. That is amazing that he would do that. That's poise. That's what he did. Then there's propriety, the respectful. We've already alluded to this. They go hand in hand, that even at this moment, he's very respectful. He's responding to the guy in such a way that this guy could help him. This guy is an authority, and when he gets before the king, he doesn't walk in and say, "Hey, king, I've got the answer, and next time don't be so stupid, and don't be so rash." None of that. Just none of that at any point. He's very, very careful that what he does convey is, I'm trusting the Lord. When you are in a crisis, does your speech convey you're trusting in the Lord? Think it through. Or do you have moments? Do you have where you just, people around you can see you're frustrated, you're hyper, you are really maxed out? Do you know what I'm talking about? Yes, no? Okay. It's not just your self-control, but does that continue that you're displaying a faith, a trust in the Lord as you're walking through? And remember, Daniel doesn't know how this is going to turn out. We know the end of the story. Daniel doesn't when he goes and says, can I have some more time? Oh, king, can I get some more time, please? In faith, I'm going to go to God. Okay, I'm going to trust the Lord. And but if God doesn't answer, I want you to know, I think you're stupid. He doesn't do that. He doesn't respond that way. It's just, and then what does he do? He goes to prayer. Verses 17 and 18. It says that Daniel went into his house, made the thing known, and that they would desire mercies of God of heaven concerning the secret, and Daniel and his fellows that they should not perish. And so they go to prayer. Can I just highlight a couple things about this prayer? They do it personally. They pray with others. They pray with specifics. Okay? I should have probably put in to start off, they actually prayed, not just talked about it, they did it. They did it. A lot of Christians talk about praying, but they don't do it. Okay? Lots of us want a Wednesday night prayer meeting at church when we're praying for revival in America, but not a whole lot of people will come and actually do it or do it at their homes. We know that's true. We know that that's the case. These guys personally pray with others, with specifics, and they pray very pointedly that they should not perish, spare our lives, but they started off with that God would show mercy to them. That God would show mercies, and it's the way it's reading in the Hebrew or in the Aramaic, it's reading, show me great mercy, mercy upon mercy, which means that these guys know that any answer comes, it's only by the grace of God. It's only by the grace of God. Very humble in their hearts. Not that, hey, God, we've been so faithful, you owe me. God, you're in control. Whatever happens, we are going to trust you. It's like the 3 men at the fiery furnace. Whether we burn or not, we're still going to be faithful to the Lord. These guys pray, and they do this, and they pray with faith because it's been stated no man can reveal this. It's been stated they're asking something impossible. But there's something not stated. It says that they prayed that they not perish, and then it says, verse 19, then was the secret revealed unto Daniel when? In a night vision. What does that tell you? Okay, there's two possibilities here. Okay, it's later on that he gets the night vision. Okay? It implies it's during the night that he gets a vision. So either these guys prayed a long time, or they prayed and they went to bed. How do you do that? What does that tell you about these people? They trusted the Lord. That they could pray over this life and death matter, not knowing what's going to happen, and they could go to sleep. You have no problem ever going to sleep, right? If there's a trial, a trouble? Yes, no? These guys, if that's the case, that they believe they're getting an answer. These kids had real faith. Not just talked about faith, they believed it. They practiced it. And then what happens is the prayer, and then we'll pick up next week. They immediately after they get the answer, immediately before they go to the king, Daniel gives a whole paragraph or two of praise. Amazing stuff.